Why do you think these NASDAQ stocks are being the hardest hit? Important to note, we're not seeing the Mag 7 on that biggest laggard list, but there's certainly a lot of big cap tech names. Why do you think tech is taking it on the chin in the pre-market on trade tensions of all things?
Because I think that it's been doing the best on the way up, right? And sort of when you do the best on the way up, it makes sense that you might have a hard time on the way down. I also think that these trade tensions aren't just physical goods anymore. When you have EU talking about their sort of bazooka, as they like to call it, the ACI that could also impact tech services companies. That is an unprecedented potential lever, and I think people are understandably just nervous about it and trying to lock in some gains.
All right, some people are nervous. I want to point out Dan Ives put out a note. He's always a tech bull, just to be clear. He says buy on the weakness. Is there an argument here that tech's attractive on this dip because it may not necessarily impact these companies, some of the companies he's naming, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Palantir, and CrowdStrike?
It absolutely depends on which company, right? So are names like Tesla, Intel, Palantir that have absolutely sky high, kind of crazy PE ratios that are just so far ahead of their valuations? Are those ones I would touch on the dip? Absolutely not. Are some names that are maybe better priced? I always like my Taiwan Semiconductor. I like my sort of old, boring sort of chip hardware companies. Yeah, it's worth taking a look, but I also think there's a big question of, is this a dip or is this a longer downturn?
All right. You point out something very important. TSM, we had their earnings last week. It gave a lot of people confidence about the AI trade. So right now, even though it's a cyclical sector, are chips one of the safer trades following that TSM report? And also the idea that NVIDIA, there may be some customs tensions with China, but at least they have the right to sell into China, and some other companies will get those licenses to open up that market?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly am a longtime believer that very, very few people understand how to navigate China and the U.S. as well as Jensen Huang. I think that he will always find a way. The bigger risk, I think, for NVIDIA is will the chip demand stay as high as it has been, particularly as some of these underlying AI companies, are struggling to find real business models like they thought they would. For these broader chip names, I like the higher tech ones. I like Taiwan Semiconductor. I think Samsung's interesting. Some of the Korean ones. I'm less inspired by kind of the names like the Intels of the world, where I think that what they're making are still just sort of desktop computer chips, and most of us are not using or buying desktop computers at nearly the same rate anymore.